We are really excited for our guest Hans Florine to be here today. He's come a long way from Lafayette, California. So long way depending on the time of day for traffic. So Hans, just a couple stats on Hans. He is the world speed record holder for climbing the nose of El Capitan. He did it with Alex Honnold not too long ago. He is a 3-time X Games champion and holds many other national championship records and global championship records, which I'm sure he'll share. So this is a guy who's pushed the limits on the sport of climbing beyond what people thought it could go. What a perfect guest for Google, who are pushing the limits on where technology is going. And he does it with a great humility as well. And we like to think that we have some humility also. So with that, I'm going to welcome Hans to the stage, and let's give him a big round of applause. And look forward to having you.
I think I'm good. We got, all right, great audio. Wow, thanks. I'm honored to be here. Anybody here, show of hands, seen me speak before? I mean live. Yeah, where did you see me speak? Oh, excellent. My home. So I want to be a great speaker for you guys and entertain you and all that stuff. And but I want to tell you what I'm going to tell you, and then I'll tell you it. I'm going to just share. I'm not going to like tie Google into like, hey, I did this thing really fast. And then you guys, I don't know, Bohr's law. You doubled the number of zeros and ones on a silicone chip or something every. Is it 3.5 years or is it 17 months? What is it? There we go. We'll do trivia during this thing, so 1.5 years. But this is my playground. It's the second most beautiful place on the planet. That's right. So you guys can do audience participation. What's the first? Of course, Mountain View is the first most beautiful place, or the Google campus, right? But this is kind of my playground or my lab or whatever you might want to call it. And this is El Capitan here on the left. A lot of people think Yosemite is all about that little boulder back there, Half Dome. It is the most photoed rock in the world, Half Dome in the back, but my stories will mostly be about El Cap. And something that's kind of made me go out and speak a little bit more is that I climbed the nose route, which happens to be the sun shadow line up the center of El Cap, for my 100th time a year ago. And yay! So the nose route of El Cap is the Everest of rock climbing. Most climbers will aspire to do it once. Most mountaineers would aspire to do Everest once. So why on earth would I do it 103 times actually? And the book, my co-author Jamie has done all the beautiful writing. She's the one who basically answers the question, why would someone do that? And this presentation is not about the book or anything. It's more about just fun tales of the history of climbing, how the world of climbing fits into Yosemite, and leading on up to a lot about me, of course, and my history of climbing. And you know, this is really popular. One of my sponsors, Outdoor Research, did this because I'm very much into numbers myself. And I think there's like some important things in here is that 11 bails, that means I failed to climb the nose 11 times in those first 100 attempts. I don't know how many times Sergey and Larry failed to do the search engine correctly or whatever, but I'm sure it was far more than 11 times. And that'll probably be my only tie into Google is something like that. But there's a lot of mainstream questions people ask, like how do you go to the bathroom up there? This is 76 wag bags, we call them. I am very fast on El Cap, but I've actually spent 39 nights, or 39 bivvies, we call them, on the route over the 100 times I've done. I've climbed it with 88 different people now. The oldest person I climbed it with was a 62-year-old, and the youngest, an 11 and 12-year-old boy and girl. 40 haul bags, 25 cups of coffee. I'm usually going so fast I can't drink coffee. This is to get home afterwards or to get to the base, right? So I do talks all over, and I like to kind of show people referentially where it is. Show of hands here, how many people have never been to Yosemite, the second most beautiful place on the planet? You guys. Does anyone know? It's probably 3 hours and 37.5 minutes from here, from the Google campus. From my house, it's 310 with a potty stop. So this is really cool. It is not high altitude. I'm a t-shirt and shorts climber. 4,000 feet at the base, only like 9, 10 at the height of the rim. But because it changes altitude so quickly, you actually can not only climb through the clouds, you can hike through it. Anybody here climb back a Half Dome? Cool. Did you do it with a permit, or did you kind of black market it before?
Snake dike.
Oh, snake dike, nice job. So, I mean, incredible. I'm like a great guide real estate person to sell you on going to Yosemite if you haven't been there before. I climbed for 10 years in Yosemite and didn't know that this existed, that it snowed in the winter there, because I was, like I said, a t-shirt and shorts climber. But there's a little Badger Pass ski resort there. It's $79 for a season pass if you're under 14. So all you parents out there, it's a great place to learn. One of the things that I point out about Yosemite is this 3,000-foot wall. There are other 3,000-foot walls in the world, but you either need to take a float plane or a boat in Baffin Island to get to them, or a yak and maybe a Russian helicopter in the Aksu region to get to it. In Yosemite, you can park right here, and 15 minutes from your car door, you can place your hand at the base of El Cap. I mean, super accessible this place is what I'd call it. Super wild, and I purposely use this photo where there's jet trails in the sky to kind of make it is this odd thing of crazy wild terrain and super accessible, right? So those people who haven't been to Yosemite, brace yourself, this does not exist there. These buildings aren't there, just reference, right? So the tallest building in the world, the Burj Khalifa or the Dubai Tower, would reach right about there, right? So the tallest structure humans have made is still not as tall as El Cap. I know there's a Google, what do they call it? Point of view thing? Street view, right? They did a street view up the nose of El Cap. How many people have seen that? Great, so it's all gonna be just rehash from that. I'm gonna just use it. But it's incredible, right? That I've placed El Cap, like I'll go to Seattle and I'll place El Cap in their city as opposed to putting buildings superimposed in Yosemite. It's just crazy that, you know, like the spire is like way down here and like El Cap would just be towering over these things. So definitely some place you gotta go. So the history of climbing in Yosemite. Anyone here, show of hands, know the first year Everest was ascended? Oh, is that 53, yeah. Does, you know what, this is so funny. I was just thinking, like, you guys got to put your phones away because you guys could Google everything really quick, right, and get the answers to all my trivia questions. But it is 1953. And why I ask that is because that's the prize of the climbing world, right? The tallest peak in the world. Or maybe the hardest thing that you could do in climbing is the tallest peak in the world, which is true in some regards. So when did they first climb this iconic face, this 1,900-foot face? Was it before or after Everest? It happened to be after 1956. They didn't think that you could get enough gear, food, red wine, whatever, up this thing to survive, right? I mean, I just kind of throw a kind of quick picture of the 50s, 60s here to kind of make it a point that they didn't have an REI that you could, actually REIs opened in the 30s or 40s, but they didn't have all the gear that you have now. This was the northwest regular route of Half Dome. It took them 5 days to climb this route. A guy named Warren Hardy, no relation to the president, hiked around the back, was known to congratulate them and then say, you know, I've got to do something better to outdo you guys, right? So he said, I'm going to climb the face of El Cap, which Half Dome would only reach right here. So Warren Hardy didn't spend 5 days, didn't spend 10 days. He spent 33 days on this wall, and he got to right about here. And the Park Service said, you got to take all that rope, gear, everything down, or go up and top out, die trying. So 2 years later, 1958, November 1st, he went on the wall with George Whitmore and Wayne Mary, and they spent 12 more days on the route, and they topped out on this route, and it's now called the Nose Route, right? It's the most sought after big wall route in the world. 32, I want to say bits, but 32 pitches, or 32 rope lengths long. And people come from around the world to do this big wall route. It's the #1 big wall route to do. And I want to throw out like images from the early 60s and 50s is that imagine these guys to get gear to climb these walls in the 40s and 50s. They would go to junkyards, saw the legs off of stoves, drill holes in them, and then hammer these things into cracks, right? They didn't have pitons until mid-late 50s, and Chenard from Patagonia was making these things as a blacksmith in his backyard. People were buying out of the back of his truck, right? This is pretty wild. 1960, the second ascent of the nose, they found this oil can, right? It smelled like red wine, because that's what Warren Harding used to bring up the stuff. They didn't have plastic bottles per se. Looks like there's only maybe 1 or 2 people in here as old as me. They had plastic chemistry bottles back in the 50s and 60s, but they would have cost $20, which would be about like $200 today. So they would find anything they could to haul water up in. And this is pretty interesting. In his other hand, nothing has changed in 60 years. That's a Ghirardelli chocolate bar. That's Joe Fitch in there. So I point out this thing, and if I could, I don't know, the leg off the bottom of a stove is probably an IBM punch card, right? Then you get pitons, which would be something, I don't know, this might be not quite an Apple IIe yet, but slowly, by the late 60s, you had something as simple as a wedge-shaped piece of metal, which we call a nut or a chalk, which you can just slide into a crack, right? And now you have these aluminum aircraft devices, and you guys can come up and play with these if you want, but you can pull this trigger, and this thing collapses small, goes into a crack, and then you can hang a VW bus off it, right? Which is the climber's car of choice. And then pull of a trigger and it's out. But imagine hammering a piton 15 times, and then someone comes up behind you because you're doing a bunch of pitches in a row, they have to hammer it out. So a lot different, right? The technology of how to climb these things has changed over the decades. This picture is Mission Cliffs. It's a climbing gym in San Francisco. And why I put this in here is that, Royal Robbins, Tom Frost, Warren Harding, they didn't climb during the winter. They were ski bums during the winter. So now you have, 12-month-a-year climbers. And of course, there's culture behind it now. Back then, you were kind of a beatnik, loser outskirts sort of thing. Now you might as well be playing football as you are climbing. It's so popular. We're in the Olympics 2020. So I can't resist a X Games thing that came around in the 90s.
Already you can see those feet are all over the place. Hans, mostly with his upper body, I think that's hurting him. His arms are doing all the work, whereas Hans, really precise with his feet, letting his legs propel him up that wall.
Florine again looking to conserve some energy.
So this is great. I'm showing you guys a video of me winning, right?
Florine has to do the job.
Of course. What else is he going to show?
Chris Block can only hope that it's Hans Florine that misses the buzzer this year.
And Hans Florine with his
Signature double dyno
move takes a one-length lead.
So this was like 1997, right? Or 96.
It's all Florine.
I got to tell you that I've never used a double hand dyno on El Capitan, okay? It's strictly for the show of the games. But something, part of why I've been able to do the ascent 100 times, and I'm gesturing over here, but I mean, why on earth would I do it 100 times, right? Part of it was the culture started accepting what we were doing, right? And I wouldn't really stretch it that you could make a living climbing, because I was a yuppie and I had other ways to make money, but it was the culture came back. But this is the culture of Camp 4, and why I put this photo up is that in 2000, Camp 4 was risk of being plowed under because we had the 100-year flood in 1999 and housing got wiped out, and they were going to build apartments here. And so we got the Camp 4 campground put on the historic register, and climbers came from around the world, not just the state or the country, around the world, and gathered to celebrate this being put on the historic register, right? And they said, hey, if you've climbed in the 90s, the last decade, come up and get your picture taken. So I got to come up. Yeah, this is me with my big golden locks of hair. And then they said, come on up and get your picture taken if you'd climbed in the 80s. And I came up then because I'd climbed. Some people came up twice. Some people came up 3 times. Some people came up 4 times. And some people came up 5 times. They had climbed all those decades. And I thought that was so cool, the longevity in the sport of these people climbing, or the activity. They didn't really even call it a sport. So I remember vividly my first time in Camp 4. I'm coming from my car to my thing, and I have climbing gear on, and this guy comes up to me really fast, and he's like, hey, what did you do today? And I didn't know this guy, and I'm like, well, we climbed this route called the Nutcracker over on Manure Pile Buttress, and he's like, wow, that's really great. Did you guys free climb it? I'm like, well, I fell on one of the pitches. My buddy got all the pitches free. And he's like, that is so cool. Like, how long did it take you? And, I time everything now from diaper changes to climbing rocks. But back then I didn't. And I'm like, well, we started at 8 this morning and it's like 3. So I don't know, took like 5 or 6 hours. He said, hey, that's so cool. Good job. Yeah, awkward silence. Like he just stood there. I'm like, oh, I know. He wants me to ask him what he did today, right? so I'm like, hey, what did you do today? And he's like, we climbed this new route over on Little Cathedral up this crack, and it's super scary, and my buddy on site free climbed it, and just like, oh, he was so psyched to like kind of pat me on the back and then kind of burn me off with something a little better, right? I don't know if you guys have that culture here or what, but like, I thought that was very cool that like he was kind of encouraging, but he wanted you to ask him what he had done, right? So I'm going to go through kind of the history of just the nose route, right? The most famous big wall route in the world. After the first ascent, the second ascent in 1960, they did it in alpine style, which means they didn't fix ropes all over. They just started at the bottom, went to the top in 7 days. The second ascent, wow, that can be done. So it was done in 3.5 days. And by 1975, probably 25, 30 teams had climbed the route. But they did it in a single day, and they coined this phrase, nose in a day, or NIAD. In fact, my license plate is Love NIAD. But by the middle, and this was pretty amazing because they're still using pitons back then, right? By the late 80s, it was a feather in your cap. I don't know, maybe like a CPA if you're an accountant, but like if you haven't done NIAD, you're not a competent trad climber, right? But what was interesting is that an Austrian and a German held the speed record on the nose, and I didn't think that was right. Although my name's Hans, I'm a melting pot American. So I asked Steve Schneider, also a melting pot American, if he would go for the record on the nose with me. And he didn't know me. He was like the John McEnroe of climbing. I was a nobody. But he said okay, because he was worried I'd do it without him, right? Well, we climbed it in 8 hours and 5 minutes, and I'm just like, yes. I'm going to be a famous climber now. Like, I got the record with Steve Schneider on the most famous big wall route in the world, right? Well, 1 week later, Peter Croft and Dave Schultz did it in 6:40, right? These guys were immortal. Everybody went like this. These guys are the dream team. No one will ever break that time, right? And this was in the New York Times and the Denver Post and the LA Times and the San Francisco Chronicle. No mention of Steve or Hans, just Peter and Dave. So, and we truly thought this was amazing, an hour and 25 minutes faster than this, right? Well, the following spring, I ran into Andy Pouvel, which towered over me 6 inches, and I'm 6'1", right? He's giant. We used to trade places every month, like in these comps. I'd beat him one time, he'd beat me another time. And I went up to Andy and I'm like, hey, Andy, how about we climb together outside so people don't think we're arch rivals? And then he's like, yeah, let's go up to Yosemite and let's get on the nose. Okay. So we get on the nose, and just for a lark, we timed ourselves, and we beat the immortals. We did it in 6:01. Just like, yes. I called my mom, said, Mom, get ready to buy the newspaper. I'm going to be soon. Well, 1 week later, Peter and Dave, 4:48. I mean, imagine it. That'd be like taking 20 seconds off the mile time, right? An hour and 13 minutes faster than us. Like, everybody went like this. These guys are the dream team. No one will ever break that time, right? Crazy. So the following spring, I got really smart. This is Peter Croft. I went to a slideshow given by Peter Croft, and after the slideshow, go, hey, Peter, good job on climbing the nose. This is like, blah, 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 good job on all this other stuff you're doing. Like, hey, Peter, he didn't know me that well. And I'm like, Peter, would you climb with me sometime so people don't think we're arch rivals? It's like, no. And I'm all turning red, like, really? But he said, nah, just kidding. I don't care what people think. Let's go climbing. So we go up to Yosemite, and we're like, well, what are we going to climb? He goes, I don't know. Let's climb the nose. So we climb the nose in 4:22, right? And everyone goes like, oh. Well, I didn't call my mom. I said, I'm going to wait a week and see what happens, right? So a week, because I don't know, I figured a week goes by, we still have the record. A month goes by, we still have a year goes by, we still have the record. Well, all the press were like, you guys break the record every year, it's not news. So we got a little postage-sized stamp thing in the letter to the editor, oh, they broke the record again. Like, oh, no fame for Hans. Well, 9 years went by, and the new young dream team, Timmy O'Neill and Dean Potter, got the record with all the new tools and stuff. They broke the 4-hour mark. I thought it'd be really cool if 1 week later someone broke their records. So I call all my friends and go, let's go up there and get the record, right? And all my friends are like married with kids and working 50 hours a week. But there's this guy, Jim Herson, who's just a total stud rock climber. Anybody here know Jim? He's a member here at Sunnyvale. So he goes, I can't go next week, but in 2 weeks I can go. So Jim Herson sends me a picture of him training to climb the nose, right? Get in trouble with the parent authorities here. So to our amazement, two sort of dads off the couch, we do it in 3:57. We just slide underneath, right, and get it. And just by sheer whatever. Well, Dean and Timmy being young and disrespectful, they didn't let us keep the record for a month or even a week. 2 days later, they went up and did it in 3:24, and everyone went like this. These guys are the new dream team. No one will ever break that record. Hans stay home and raise kids and do a job. And they were right. So they kept the record for a week. They kept it for a month. They kept it for a year. The next year, my good friend Yuji Hirayama shows up into the U.S. He wanted to climb the Salathé route, which is another route on El Capitan. He wanted to do it free. And I said, hey, Yuji, let's do the nose kind of as warm-up to get used to the granite. You climb in the southeast, you want to get used to the sandstone. You want to climb here, you get used to the granite. So to me and Yuji's amazement, our very first time trying the nose in a day, we did it in 3:27, which was not the record. But we passed 7 parties along the way. It's a pretty busy route. And I wrote the book on speed climbing. There's a whole chapter designated to the art of passing, right? You got to stop and say hello to people and like ask permission to pass. So I figured we should get a 1-minute handicap, right, for each party we pass, and we should have the record. But that didn't really go over well. So we went back the next week, and Yuji had some friends go to the top of El Cap and film down on us. So I'm just going to play this footage because it's pretty unique. I don't even think Google Sidewalk or whatever it's called has this. Street view, that's what it's called, right? We did not have the budget for a helicopter, by the way. There was a rescue going on that day. Hey, and while this is playing, I got you guys lock solid till 1, right? I can give you stories till then? All right. I don't know if this auditorium has motion sickness bags under the seat, but this is kind of big here, so be careful. So this is pretty amazing, you guys. This is not a broccoli patch up there. Those are full-size pine trees, and today, that picture, 80% of that is brown from bark beetles and the drought. Not to make an eco statement, just an interesting thing that changed. This is his photographer, Kenji, jumping in and out to take the shot. So the very last part of El Cap is this roof right here that Yuji's going to cup under, and then you crest over. And then you run like 80 feet to this tree where you stop your time. And Yuji is up there, and he's pulling the rope up on me. And all these people are down in the meadow yelling like crazy, and their voices get lifted up because of the air currents. And we're super psyched because we can hear them. And I'm exhausted trying to keep up with Yuji. Totally exhausted, but excited these people are yelling at me. So I want to like yell something back down at them. But I'm like going anaerobic and have almost no air left. And here's the best I could do, kind of back towards the people down below. Just focus on getting to the top, Hans, you know. So the week before, we did it in 3 hours and 27 minutes, which was 3 minutes shy of the record. This week, there was nobody on the route, and we actually did it in 2 hours and 48 minutes. Whew. That's like Bohr's law in 2 weeks, basically, like doubling. But everybody went like this, oh, it's the dream team, and no one will ever break that record. So Yuji is not only like this world-class climber, he's won the world championships dozens of times. He's a super world-class, funny, friendly guy. If you don't speak Japanese, you can read some English subtitles underneath.
とりあえずスピードクライミングはこの辺にしておいて。いやーよかったよかった。やった甲斐があったよ。なんか 子供とかね、母ちゃんとか。
Yeah, funny guy. So this was amazing. Like there was a crowd of people in the meadow, right? And so we get back down through the forest, and there's somebody poking a camera in my face, and I'm happy to
But
talk,
yeah, I
right?
feel really happy. I think it's going to be really hard for someone to go faster than us. Yeah, unless there's like two UGs going up together. It'll be really hard. I think this record will last for a good long time.
Yeah. So that was fun. Finally got the I don't know, definitive record, and this is kind of like my little gear talk, tech talk picture for climbers and stuff, but we actually finally got press. I got on the front cover of Climber magazine. It's funny that Ollie said that like I'm really humble. My nickname was Hollywood Hans. Nothing could be less humble than that, right? So we got all this press, and worldwide, like the nose kind of gained more, I don't know, significance in the climbing community, and actual professional climbers, Alex and Thomas Huber, got rumored $1 million filming budget to come and do a documentary on getting the record on the nose. And I went down to the house they were staying at and brought my kids and was trying to show them my little CD set on how to climb the nose faster and stuff. And they're busy trying to have my kids drink alcohol, like good Germans. And they're like, no, we just go faster. It turns out they won all these awards for the film because it was this cool drama and whatever, but they didn't get the record in the film. Super proud. They came back the next year and got the record on the nose, off film, I guess. But if a picture's worth 1,000 words, video's worth 1,000 pictures. These guys are hilarious. I'll just let this play.
In 2007, the nose race was shaken up by German climbing stars Alex and Thomas Huber.
First, we thought speed climbing is a stupid thing, or it's American thing. I don't want to say American and it's the same like stupid, but it's...
But I just did.
We don't like it.
But we found out that's real sport. And we like sports, and of course, we're ambitious, and we want to do this.
Yeah, hilarious. Alex and Thomas Huber, very cool guys, and just the classic sort of, we got the record shot. They beat the record only by 20 seconds, and then they went back 3 days later and chopped a full 3 minutes off it, so very proud. And when people would say like, oh, the record will never be broken, no one's ever gonna break you and Yuji's record, I'd be like, no way. And I'm a big wagerer. I'm like, I'll bet you $100 that somebody's gonna break our record. And sure enough, when they broke it, my buddy Bob sent me a $100 check. So I used it to go buy beers for Thomas and Alex and proceeded. It wasn't enough for them, but I tried. So I got beta from them on how to go. Beta means ideas. That's an old term you guys probably don't know. But ideas how to go faster, right? And that very next spring, me and Yuji show up, and hundreds of people are in the meadow cheering us on. And here's a little footage from that. So I'm so exhausted, I can't tell them what time it is, whether we got the record.
2:43, 33.
Still out of breath, I'm trying to talk. And of course we get the full-on NASCAR greeting down in...
You like that? Oh, now. I'm glad you see. 2:43:33.
Right? Yeah, here's the NASCAR greeting in the woods when we get down, right?
Oh, yeah, right. That's good.
We're gonna go break that record. So you guys watch out. We are gonna break it.
Remember those words, you guys. Someone's gonna break that record. So again, my little tech talk here, and so I was in college, went to Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. Me and my roommate came up in 1988 by headlamp. We hiked to the base here in the woods, and we started climbing. And we climbed all day until it got dark. And it was just dusk, and we're like, we're not gonna make it. We've drank more than half our water. We were kind of planning on a 2 or 3 day ascent like most people do. And we're not gonna make it. We drank more than half our water, ate more than half our food. And after that 13, 14 hours of climbing, we arrived right here. And we rappelled down, went back to school for a year, and came back, and we climbed the route in 3 days a year later. But when me and Yuji, let's see, 18 years later, I was 26 when I came, and it took me 14 hours to get here. 18 years later, when I was old and feeble but more knowledgeable, me and Yuji took 17 minutes to get to Sickle Ledge, which is kind of some sort of Bohr's law in there of some sort or another. So really cool perspective. And I often, like, when I'm speaking around, people come up to me years later and say, I was inspired to do this or that, and then I kind of point out, like, I don't really, I don't save lives in Ethiopia per se directly or whatever, but because I've kind of focused on something so tightly, I've gotten all these cool invitations to do different things, and one of them I just wanted to share with you is I have had the good fortune or the honor to climb with Eric Weihenmayer, who is the blind climber who's done the 7 summits. He asked me in the mid-90s if a blind guy could climb the nose of El Cap, and I'm like, yeah, sure. Because I was young and ignorant, I didn't know to say no to him. And we ended up climbing it, and for those that don't know, climbers know this, but on most big walls, a leader goes up, and then the followers go on rope. Either you're pulling the rope up for them, or you're sliding an ascender like this up the rope, and then it can't come down, right? And so maybe even you guys think like, well, I'd rather be blind if I'm 3,000 feet up, so I'm not scared of the exposure. And like all Eric did was follow Hans up the rope. He just slid his jugs up there. And then I tell people that Eric actually led some of the pitches, which means he went up first, tied the rope, and then I had to follow him. And they're like, Hans, you're stupid. How did you survive that? But totally incredible, impressive guy, Eric. I've gotten to adventure with him a couple other times. He invited me to go do Mount Kenya with him, which is not the tallest peak in the continent of Africa. It's the second tallest. He had already done Kilimanjaro. And he said, hey, come and do this because it's like this big granite wall. So this is a shot of Eric and Charlie in Heathrow Airport, and Eric's got his white cane under his lap right here. Eric came to San Francisco with his seeing eye dog and did a show. He's a motivational speaker. And then I was going to meet him there, and I would be his seeing eye dog to get him to Heathrow Airport, where he'd be reunited with Charlie and his stick. So we have this little trick. Eric would just kind of hold onto a backpack back here, and he'd just be back at my 4 o'clock or maybe my 7 o'clock as we're going through the airport. And you'd never know he's blind, right? And we're late for our flight as usual. And I go and I cut the corner on this table, and I forgot Eric was back there. Eric hits the table right at the wrong spot, doubles over on the ground. And I'm like, how am I going to get him up Mount Kenya? I can't even get him through an airport, right? Just crazy. So we're sitting in first class because Eric has all these miles. And I'm probably going to go off the screen, so I can't do that. But okay, so I'm sitting in first class, and back behind me is Eric in his first class seat. And for those of you who've never flown first class, they give you a little menu and ask you what you want before the plane takes off. Well, this was 2005. He actually had a CD player, Eric did, and he was listening to books on tape, and he had his earplugs in, and he's looking at his CD player like this, and the steward comes up and places the menu right in front of his face and says, sir, what would you like for dinner? And he can't hear her, and he can't see that there's a menu in front of his face, and he doesn't have dark glasses on, but he has these fake glass eyes, and they look really nice. And she just gets louder and louder, and I'm up here, and I hear this woman yelling, like, sir, what do you want for dinner? Sir, what do you want for dinner? And I'm like, oh, sorry, ma'am, he can't see. And she just starts yelling, why didn't you tell me he can't see? And I'm like, I didn't know I had to announce to everybody, and like, here I'm, oh my God, how can I get this guy? So quite amazing, just all the little things we take for granted, just getting places. So I think green is approximately Kilimanjaro, and red is Kenya. So Eric sends me this beautiful picture of Mount Kenya, and he wants me to do this 1,900-foot granite face when there's perfectly good, ridge line to do over there. But he wants to do the hard way, right? And when Eric's approaching, we're like talking and stuff. When our voices get tired, we have a little like jingle bell, reindeer bell that we jingle on the back of the packs, and it's just kind of business as usual. You'd never know he's blind because he's just feeling his way with his poles, right? I think off here on the left skyline, you'll see, we were like a day into the hike, and we have another day before we get to base camp. You can see Mount Kenya shows up here in the far left corner there. So a long ways to go. This is Eric coming down a talus slope. We went up and set gear at the beginning of the route, that 1,900-foot granite face, and then we had to go back down this to get to base camp. Now, me and Charlie probably could have gone down this talus slope in less than 15 minutes, but with Eric, it was probably just less than 2 hours. I mean, imagine the pole goes between two rocks, so you think it's a 3-foot drop-off, but it's actually only a 1-foot drop-off, right? Or the reverse could happen. He thinks it's a 1 foot, but his foot goes next to the pole. Just arduous amount of work, right? We heard that there was a hut, a European hut on top of this thing. So we started at 4 a.m., topped out at like 10 p.m., and there was a hut, all right, but it was more an aluminum coffin. It was like this tall, and it was 5'11". I know because I'm 6'1", and I couldn't quite straighten out in it. So we slept like a 4-hour kind of sleepless night there and hiked on down. So Eric, just like he doesn't want to take the easy route up this thing, he also doesn't want to do like normal stuff when he's in foreign countries. So he's like, what do tourists do that's kind of weird in Africa? And somebody planted the seed in his head that people go and ride ostriches, right? Anybody here ridden an ostrich? I have, but there's one thing Eric can't do, as adventuresome as he is, he can't film for nothing. When he filmed me on the ostrich, all you see is the feet going by. But we do have footage of him actually on it. And these handlers have to be on the side no matter whether you're sighted or not, right? And Eric's always game, you got to do it styling. And we're like, Eric, it doesn't count unless you wave your hand over your head, right? So he's totally game to do whatever we tell him.
Very well done.
So some of the fun adventures I've gotten to go on. But I want to go back to my my neighborhood and finish off with a story here of something that's happened here. Anybody know the name or two guys' names that first ascended Everest? Throw it out if you want. Correct. Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay. Does anybody know who has the fastest ascent of Everest? Yes, dead silence. And the reason I point that out is that I had the fastest time on the nose and the fastest time on Half Dome, this, that, but people in the climbing community and somewhat in, outside world, whoever's the first to do something gets fame, and we all want that. Well, I do. Or you do something that's just totally, no one thought to do it beforehand, right? So in 1986, John Backer and Peter Croft at midnight on a full moon, they started right here. Excuse me, is that where they started? No, they started right here on their bikes. They biked up to the end of the valley. They hiked over, they climbed Half Dome, the face of Half Dome, a grade 6 route, which today an average party takes 2 days to climb. They climbed it in 10 hours or so or less, hiked down, got on their bikes, biked to this end of the valley, climbed El Cap, went down rappelling, got on the bikes, and went to the Mountain Room Bar in the same 24 hours. Everyone went like this. This was called the linkup, right? The linkup. 1 week later, nobody repeated this feat. 2 years later, nobody. 5 years later, it was 10 years later before someone successfully was able to repeat this feat, the linkup, right? And I'm like, maybe I could do something first that's, fast, right? So around about the late 90s, only, myself included, only 4 teams total in the world had done the linkup. So what's the next thing to do, right? Well, let me explain, when 2 people go up a big wall route, it's inchworm climbing. First person goes up, second person cleans the gear and meet. And then person goes up, second person cleans the gear and meet. And they might switch who's leading, but it's an inchworm thing, right? You go a rope length at a time. So when you climb by yourself up a big wall, you place the rope at the base, you climb up, and now you're up on this ledge or anchor, and there's nobody there to clean your gear, right? So you have to rappel down, get your rucksack, if you're European, or backpack if you're American, and you put your jugs on, you ascend back up to here, and then you repeat. You go up again, rappel down. So when you solo a big wall route, you actually climb it twice and rappel it once, kind of like sand dune hiking. You just go up 3 steps, slide back 2. So why would anybody solo, right? Anybody? Because you have no friends, right? But it turns out to be a pretty proud thing in climbing to solo big walls or to solo mountains. So it's a thing that's done. Well, I wanted to be the first person to solo the linkup, right? The 2 grade 6s in the valley. I heard that winter that this guy, Dean Potter, had climbed this route in 4 hours and 17 minutes by himself. And I'm like, oh, I've climbed this route by myself in 14 hours, so that's 18. So that's under 24, but of course you're exhausted. I mean, it's like saying you're gonna run a marathon in the morning, whatever. But I got it in my head, I'm gonna do this, and I'd call it accountability partners. This was 1999. As best I could, I emailed out a bunch in 99 and told everyone I'm gonna do it and committed to the full moon, July 24th, I'm gonna go do this thing. And I went and I climbed Half Dome in the morning. I started at 4:30 a.m. And to my utter amazement, I beat the immortal, crazy climber Dean Potter. I beat it by like 20 minutes. I climbed it in under 4 hours. I came around down by, I think, 11 a.m. I arrived in El Cap Meadow, and my good friend Steve Schneider was there, who I talked about earlier. He's my #1 fan, right, by this point, because he's known me for a while. If I tie my shoe fast, Steve Schneider's like, good job, Hans, way to go, right? So I was psyched to tell my best buddy and mentor, Steve Schneider, I got the record on Half Dome that morning. And he knew, along with the rest of the climbing community, I was trying to do the link up that day, right? And so I go, Steve, I just got the record on Half Dome. And Steve's like, good job, Hans. Kind of hanging his head. And I'm like, Steve, but like, aren't you excited for me? I mean, I just got the record and I'm going to do the link up. I'm going to be the first person to do the link. And he's like, Hans, I got to tell you something I don't want to tell you. I'm like, well, what is it? Spit it out, man. He's like, Dean Potter flew here yesterday and did the link up both routes in a day before you. He kind of hovers down like I'm him, and I'm just like, oh, that's totally awesome. Oh, it's not awesome. I'm not going to be the first. I'm not going to be the first. So that was hard. Went from the highest of highs to like, and I thought I was going to be climbing El Cap, and I didn't have anything else to do that afternoon. So, and Steve was trying to like break the ice. He goes, hey, how about we go get an ice cream or something, I'm like, nah, I've kind of got it in my head. I'm going to just go and start climbing El Cap. So I go walk to the base and start climbing, and it gets dark about when I'm halfway up, and I put on a headlamp and I keep climbing, and there's these big ledges that you get to, and I got to this ledge called Camp 5. There's somebody there that kind of kept me awake as I'm climbing, and then I got to Camp 6, and Mark Wellman was there, middle of the night. It's 1 a.m. in the morning. He's paralyzed from the waist down. It's his second time up El Cap. How motivational, right? Middle of the night, and I arrived there, and Mark Wellman's like, dude, Hans, what are you doing? He's getting out of his sleeping bag or sitting up in his sleeping bag. What are you doing, man? And I'm like, Mark, man. But by this time I'm kind of excited, and I've gotten over the whole thing. I'm not the first. I'm just like, hey, 2 guys get to the moon. It's still cool to be the first 2 guys to walk on the moon. This is incredible. So whatever in my head, I'm like, Mark, I'm psyched. I'm climbing El Cap and Half Dome in a day by myself. And Mark's like, really? Do you know that Dean Potter was through here last night doing the same thing? I'm just like, oh, can't you think of something original to do, Hans? So I just kind of kept climbing through the night. I got near the top, and my good friend Allard Huffner from South Africa had hiked to the top of Half Dome and hiked to the top of El Cap to photo and film me. And here he is after 21 hours of hiking and climbing. He just meets me with this big old smile, and I'm exhausted, and the best I could do back to him was this, right? This, to me, is the touchstone picture, if you will, of like the end of the best day of your life. You're super excited, super happy, maybe not super energized, but you've got that feeling of reward on your face, right? I mean, I know that 99% of the time I look like this, very humble, Hollywood Hans, and on the front cover of this. But really, like all my best adventures, I want to end somewhere looking like this, right? I don't know if it's you guys have an app deadline or what it is, and you're here in your programming rooms till 1 a.m., but this is what you want to look like, right? I mean, just exhausted and great. And it's this sort of, I don't know, image that I look back on to try to, what's my next adventure? Well, whatever it is, I want to look like this at the end, and that's kind of what spurned me on to all this numbers stuff, if you will, or achieving the 100th ascent of the nose or whatever. I wanted to point out like something else in the, I don't know, culture of climbing that's kind of neat. This is Tom Frost over here with the white shirt on. He started climbing, pause for effect. He started climbing before I was born. He did the second ascent of the Nose and the first ascent of the Salotay and many other things. So he started climbing before I was born. I've gotten to climb with him some of the great routes in Yosemite. And then Alex Honnold over here is kind of 60 Minutes boy, cover of National Geographic. I started climbing before Alex was born, and I've got to climb with him as well. In fact, I got the Nose record with him in 2012 after I had done it with Yuji. And so I'm just super grateful, I guess, for that sort of connection between the generations. Tom Frost, actually, the old guy, soloed up to the base of the Nose and gave me and Yuji ideas on how to go faster. Like, we're taking ideas from this guy that climbed in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, right? And as well as like young people giving us ideas. So I put that out there that, you know, it's great that the ideas come from all these different levels of experience in climbing. And I want to end on this story. This is Yuji here on the right and Tom Frost. This is the night before we were going to go for the record. And Tom Frost is like watching Yuji organize all this gear, and Tom Frost is over here like, hey, I'm so psyched for you guys. I think Mother Nature and The Rock is really cheering for you. I think you guys are going to get the record tomorrow. What do you think? Are you guys going to get like 10 minutes off or 15 minutes off? And Yuji's like, yeah, Tom. And you know, he knows the legend Tom Frost, so he's just like excited. And he's like, yeah, man, Tom, I think we're going to get 10 or 15 minutes off the record. I'm so psyched. I think we're going to do it. I'm so glad you're here, you know, cheering us on and whatnot. And you can see, I should switch places, but Tom is just like, well, that's cool. That's really awesome, you guys. And then he's just sitting there silent like this. And I know that he's wanting us to ask him something about what he's done, right? So I'm like, so Tom, you broke the record on the Nose when you did it, didn't you? Yeah. He's like, yeah, I did. And I'm like, well, how much time did you take off it? And he goes, we took 3.5 weeks off the previous best record. So if there's a lesson in that, it's humility. And thank you guys for listening to my stories. I got, 6 minutes for Q&A. Cool.
Okay, so I can pass this mic around.
So what goals do you have for the rest of your life?
My goals right now are get my 16-year-old daughter out of high school and into college, and my son, I don't know, through middle school and maybe to high school. They're pretty odd goals. But in regard to like climbing fitness goals, my odd thing is I just like to stay fit when an opportunity arrives. I mean, like I happen to be doing the CrossFit Open right now for my 3rd year, and I bragged that I placed, 1,310th in my age division last year. But I just try to find interesting ways to stay fit in the city in case I get invited to like Mount Kenya with Eric or something. And I just want to say that I'm totally comfortable. I know you guys like maybe you have to be in your seat at 1 p.m. working or you need somewhere to go or whatever. I don't feel like you're insulting me if you have to get up and take off. But yeah.
People who speed run video games play them a completely different way than normal people play them for fun. They're finding glitches and little corners and unintended stuff. Yeah. When you speed climb, how do you see the rock or the route differently than a normal human would see it?
I thought that was going to be like asking me how I play one of these rock climbing video games or something. I don't know the name. It's different on a route that you've been on before, like the Nose, versus a route you haven't been on. But you are, one of the things I teach just in regular climbing is that when you fall, most people, it's their forearms that's tired. And you'll see, where's Hans going with this? But your forearms are tired because it's usually your grip strength is tight because you're holding on for your life. And I go, hey, was your neck tired? And they're like, my neck? No, it wasn't tired. And I go, well, look around all the time whenever you're climbing for solutions. And that means when I'm speed climbing, I'm often not gripping hard and fast. I'm looking around, where can I place my foot and push with my foot or push with my hand rather than pull. And kind of an interesting social commentary on is that when I take a couple I teach a lot of people to climb at a gym or wherever. When you take a couple to climb, male and female, doesn't have to be a couple, but a male and female, it tends to be that when everything else is equal, the woman will out-climb the man because you get to places climbing or bouldering and you're like, I can't get any farther. What do I do? Guys tend to go like this and look at their bicep and pull harder. I mean, I exaggerate, but women tend to go like this and look, oh, I can put my foot up, or oh, I can grab this undercling. And so when I'm speed climbing, I'm like, oh, my neck's not tired. I'm looking around, what can I do? You know, you're kind of a little bit frantic, but more, I like urgent better than frantic. Sounds so much better.
So each time that you went to beat a previous record, was there something that you added in training? Or, I mean, you mentioned that you would be more aware, but is there kind of something that you would work on to be faster than the previous time in particular?
Great question. Once the Huber brothers got the record, me and Yuji actually started looking at the topos and plotting out like, let's lead this, and we never use this piece of gear here. And we, you know, Tom Frost was really good at like, hey, there's a logistical points where a crack ends and you have to pendulum over to another. And how you decide who's going to pendulum low and high is can save you time, and someone doesn't have to climb this terrain or that terrain. So we would actually sit there on the topo and draw it out and start planning versus just, let's just go and go faster, right? Those guys did more than just go faster, but that's one of the big changes was strategy-wise. We just really took a close look at like, hey, are we wasting time, you know, coiling the rope up here and somebody climbs this part twice? But as a like training part, I was working at an architect engineering firm when me and Yuji got the record second. And I would get up at 4 a.m., climb for 3 hours because I knew the record would be at 3 hours, as hard as I could in the gym, and go into my cubicle all exhausted for the rest of the day. And I do that twice a week maybe. So I was just training for the time period that I'd be putting out effort, I guess, or what I thought I'd be putting out effort.
So I'm definitely not planning on climbing the nose this season or any time in the next couple of years. But I feel like I speak for a lot of people in here that are aspirational big wall climbers or aspirational just climbers in general. Kind of what kind of tips you would have for people that are like intermediate, trying to get better in the sport, and especially like trying to balance, like you mentioned that you had other ways of living. I don't know if you had like a full-time job and you had to balance climbing with that job, but maybe.
Well, right out of college, I went and worked 50 hours a week at a manufacturing engineering firm with a tie and slacks, and I was working 50 hours a week, but every Tuesday, Thursday after work, I'd be bouldering around the city. I was in LA, and then I'd go out to the desert Joshua Tree and climb my brains out every weekend and be exhausted Monday. Just I was in love with the activity of climbing. But to your other question, like wherever you're at in climbing, how do you get to doing big walls, is go and do like a multi-pitch route in Lover's Leap, like 2 or 3, 4 pitches. So you learn how to like, you know, for one, go up trad cracks, and then you're at an anchor and now you go up another. Because in the gyms, of course, it's never multi-pitch. So just that organization of how to move urgently and quickly and safely, of course. Different pitches, and then you go, well, let's go do an overnight on a long route in Yosemite, and then let's do a 2-day thing or something. You know, there's a Road to the Nose by Chris McNamara on Super Topo. There, I plugged you, Chris. Supertopo.com, Road to the Nose. It tells you all the routes to do on up to doing a big wall. So.
If somebody goes and breaks the record next week, are you going to be out there in 2 weeks?
I will not go and break the record again. Yeah. And a handful of public audiences, accountability partners, you guys, I'm not going to go back. Yeah. Not for that record, yeah. Yeah, back in the back.
How much more traffic has the nose gotten over the years is my first question. And second one is, how many times have you climbed the nose?
Now it's been 103 times I've climbed the route, and I've rappelled it twice. I forgot to put that stat in there. That's pretty fun. About the crowdedness of the nose, it's interesting. There's no permit required to climb El Cap. You can just go and climb. It's an old grandfathered thing about climbers in wilderness were allowed to climb big walls. So you never know how many people will be on it, but when I climbed it in 1998, we passed 9 parties. Not people, but parties. So there could have been 2 to 4 people in those parties. I've never climbed it since then with that many parties on it. it happens to be the case the route is or El Capitan as a whole is, you could look up on a starry night at dusk and there'll be 36 headlamps here and then the stars above it. It's a totally cool scene. So if you're ever in Yosemite, go at dusk at climbing season. But that is limited to the like 4 to 6 weeks in the spring and 4 to 5 weeks in the fall. If you go, there'll be nobody on El Cap from like summer solstice June to the 1st of September, because people tend to think it's too hot. We're really gifted here in the Bay Area. We can look at the weather report. I look at my watch, I don't know why, but look at the weather report and go, oh, it's cool this weekend, I can go, you know. So you could go up El Cap and there's nobody on it, especially as a Bay Area person, or if you have a private jet, whatever.
How do you deal with fear, and have you had a bad fall?
I have had numerous bad falls. My worst was I slammed my face in the rock and broke front teeth and rope burn on my leg. That one happened so fast. It was a sport climbing fall where I just flipped up and probably only fell like 25 feet and slammed my face in that. There wasn't time to be afraid. But I've had falls where I've slid down slopes of granite 45 feet and I'm just like the whole time, you know, kind of probably screaming. This is before you had mobile phones to record this stuff. But, and my hands were burned and actually my knees were burned. I was just kind of frog laying on it trying to get grip. But I said at the beginning, like often at mainstream talks, I don't know what that qualifies as, but like I'll explain I'm not the M word. I'm not a mountaineer, which tends to be more risk. And most deaths in climbing is mountaineering, alpinism. I'm more so, although I've tried that type climbing and it's fun, adventurous, I'm a t-shirt and shorts climber. I love the athleticism of covering all this ground on El Cap. And so when I get scared or fearful, I look to end it. Like, oh my gosh, I'm 10 feet above my last piece of protection. What can I do right now to put something in so I'm not afraid? Kind of like when your deadline, I don't know, I'll try to tie it in. Deadline for your app is due and you're like, bring in some more help. I don't know.
So my question, in the book 50 Favorite Climbs, you said that Beggar's Buttress was your favorite route. Is that still your favorite line?
That never was my favorite climb. But the author of the book, 50 Favorites, said you cannot choose any route that's in the 50 Classics book. So right across the valley from Beggar's Buttress is a beautiful view of the nose. So the route he talks about, Beggar's Buttress, ends right here, actually. So you're looking right over at the nose.
I listened to an interview with you where you talked a lot about bringing a lot of other climbers up El Cap. Can you just talk about maybe like some of the best stories you have of bringing other climbers up El Cap?
If I tell you the best stories of bringing other climbers up El Cap, nobody will read the book. How's that? One of the chapters is completely published in Rock and Ice, and it's probably most known for me is that's a speed record with Alex Honnold, and he's a very funny, charming young man. But one of the most memorable is Eric Weihenmayer, the blind guy. We were 5 days on the route, and that he led pitches. I would never consider having him lead pitches now that I know what I know. I was just ignorant back then. And I remember him leading up this crack that was the same size for 100 feet, and I'm thinking, oh, great, it's the same size. He can just keep feeling his hands the same and placing gear. But I'm down there belaying, and I only gave him 3 number 2 Camelots, which is the right size for that. And like he's placed the 3 and he has none left, and he still has 70 feet to climb. And I'm down there belaying, just going, what have I just done? You know, what have I just done? I set this blind guy up to either die or fall a long way and be maimed for life more so than he is. And just other memories on that trip. I broke down and cried on top. I was so exhausted from guiding him up there, which I use the term now, guided, but like I realized when I got to the top that like I didn't guide him. He led us to do this thing. It's just, he's an amazing leader. But you guys got to be careful because I can Q&A for 10 hours, but because I just love what I'm doing. But most people, because it's the Everest of rock climbing, they will do it once and they'll remember it the rest of their life. And that to me is just this crazy, fun, rewarding bond that I was with them. And so it's so cool to go up that route with different people, whether it's famous Lynn Hill or, I don't know, John Smith from Belgium or whatever. Yeah, it's cool to be part of their memory.
Let's just give Hans another round of applause for